one of my interesting, talking more and more to clients and seeing more clients in Europe, okay, squeezing their budgets,
yes,
reducing their budgets, and all of that going over
into
to you,
Asia, yeah.
going into Asia.
Yeah.
So I think what's interesting for me is I'm watching my business actually still being requested to do the same amount of work but for less, right? And with a slower growth rate. Yours is actually growing much faster. Question for you is, do you think it is requires a different management style, a different kind of leadership style to manage a growth market like Asia versus
yes,
when it's not?
I would. So we already talked about the challenges. I mean, some of the challenges are therefore probably similar, lack of talent and therefore not being able to capitalize on the growth opportunity which is there. I would say it's equally challenging because yes, on paper there is great growth opportunity, but to convert it into reality is equally tough in that environment. Why? I mean, one is just the sheer complexity of those markets. So while you talk from a European perspective about a mature market, but traditional mindsets of clients. In our case, it's many markets coexisting at the same time, coupled with the traditional mindset. So go to a country like Vietnam. Huge amount of rural population living in villages. The way clients like Unilever would market to communities out there would be really by reaching out to their communities through events, promotions, local area activation. At the same time, you've got a lot of youngsters just entering the workforce, living in Ho Chi Minh City, who are all highly connected, all on social media, and there is a very different way of marketing to them and connecting with them.
So you're saying it's tougher?
So it's tougher because therefore the talent which you need in the agency has to deal with very extreme sort of level of complexities in reaching out to consumers for our clients, because there is that diversity. All
right, so what do you think the challenges are then in Europe? Actually, that's a curious question. So what you working in Asia, what do you think my challenges
are? I think it's more mindset, isn't it? Because it is a mature market. Growth is hard to find for all our clients. People already have reached a certain sort of standard of living, and therefore they are consuming, and it's clients who are competing with each other for market share, right? So it's and therefore all the issues which are related to a market like that I would imagine be related to, therefore, can I do things at a lower cost? How can I pare down my cost of business? And therefore there's a lot of focus on managing costs rather than managing the top line. No,
it is. I mean, I think it is about managing costs. It's also, I think, it's also about justifying that cost. So that every dollar or every euro spent has to be accountable. Yes. And that's one of the challenges, is that there is this juxtaposition between making it, wanting to do innovative new things, but having a very limited budget and having lots of cost pressure on it to make sure that you extract the most value from that budget to deliver the best sales, market share, etc. So the challenge for our guys is that not only do we have to be innovative and try different things, but we also have to show how those new things are going to actually deliver to the client's bottom line as well. And I think for us that makes it, in some respects, even doubly challenging, because at the same time there's very little risk appetite for us. Yes. And I think potentially in a growth market, because it's growing, there is the propensity to be a bit more risky. So to take the model that we always talk about with our clients about, 70, 20, 10, all right, to say 70% of your money should be spent on stuff, the media that will work, 20 should be on the stuff, the channels like Facebook that we know a lot about, but it's not 100%. And the 10% should be for test and learn, experimental stuff. And that's really, really hard to do in Europe. I reckon actually it's much easier to do or to push that in Asia. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, for a certain set of clients, and I guess clients who are marketing to consumers who are now upscale, evolved, and who you would find anywhere in the world. So probably to that segment, I think that's very true. But I mean, just to give you an example, so let's take a market like India. So what happens, and if you have a big client like Unilever, So you will find that within what is supposedly one market, it's actually 3 very different sort of markets within one. So at the top end, you have a huge set of, a huge market, in fact, probably bigger than the entire population of Australia, with the average per capita income of more than the average Australian. Then you have a vast middle somewhere, which is probably population of the size of a Mexico, which is a middle income country, with the average purchasing power of a Mexican. And then you have another huge chunk of people, which is probably the population of sub-Saharan Africa, with the average per capita income of a person in sub-Saharan Africa. So when you look at brands which are marketing in that context, so the top end, I think we find that those consumers are like what you find in all the mature markets. That's so the way you market to them is very similar, and therefore the approach which you just described in Europe is probably what is applied. But then you have the other 2 segments, which are extremely different, and the challenge in front of brands is how do you get to the right mix for those segments as well, because you can't build a business just on that top segment. So, and that has huge implications, I think, therefore, for the kind of work which our clients do, which we do, the type of talent that you deploy, the business model which is at work, both for our clients and for us, in activating all their marketing plans with consumer segments which are so diverse. So it just makes the whole challenge far more complex, because forever you are grappling with very, very diverse set of consumer segments with very different purchasing power, very different aspirations, and the approach to marketing being so radically different. So that, to my mind, is probably the single biggest challenge which faces us and our clients.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Europe is not exactly a single amorphous. It is not as probably as diverse in terms of its constructs as Asia, but I think it is. There are differences in, and many sort of anomalies. That the IT infrastructure, the mobile infrastructure and the broadband infrastructure in Romania is better than it is in the UK. So even you do find, on a different scale, you do find that it's not all the same, and that there are lots of surprises.
In Europe itself,
and it's one of the great things you always learn and new things working across all the markets.